Welcome to the Math Breaker. Today we'll be tackling the math section of the second SAT practice exam. A copy of this exam along with several others will be in the description below. As I said in the previous video, I recommend answering these questions before you watch this video, but if you want to follow along, that's fine. Also take notes if you want. Anyways, let's continue on to the purpose of the video. Okay, the non-calculator section. The non-calculator section is 25 minutes and 20 questions. And the formulas are here if you ever need to use them. Question 1. If 5x plus 6 is equal to 10, what's the value of 10x plus 3? This is just a simple equation question, so you just want to find x. So subtract 6 from both sides to get 5x plus 4. 5x is equal to 4. So divide by 5 from both sides to get x is equal to 4/5. Usually I just keep it in fraction form because it's easier to deal with. Decimals are harder to work with because if you start multiplying, for example, you put 0.8 times 4, then you get 3.2. But if you don't know how to do that, for like some of the harder decimals, it might be a little bit challenging. But if you have something like 4/5 times 4, it's just 16 over 5. So it's easier to think about. So in this case, it is easier because now you know x is equal to 4, 5. So 10x plus 3, just plug in the x 4/5 here. The 10 cancels out the 5 on the bottom, so that's left with the 2 on top. So 2 times a 4 is 8, plus the 3. Sorry. Plus the 3 is equal to 11. So the first answer is C. Question 2. Which of the following ordered pairs xy satisfy the system equations above? This is just basically a system equations question. So you see a negative y here and a positive y here. So you want to add these together. So you want to cancel out the y in beginning because it's easier to do so. For the first equation, you want to multiply by 2. So that will make 2x. Sorry. That'll make 2x plus 2y equal to 0, and 3x minus 2y is equal to 10. Now you add these two equations together. 3x plus 2x is 5x. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0, and 10 plus 0 is 10. So x is equal to 2. So plug in x is equal to 2 in the first equation, so that's 4, plus 2y is equal to 0. So y is now equal to negative 2. So the answer is 2, negative 2. Sorry, my handwriting is bad. So the answer is B. It's a pretty easy system equations question. So if you ever need to like double check for these questions, just do the exact same way. Or plug in each of the answers if you're right. So then you're right. A landscaping company estimates that the price of a job in dollars using the expression 60 plus 12 NH, where N is the number of landscapers who will be working and H is the total number of hours the job will be using N landscapers. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the number 12 in the expression? Um, First we need to understand what the expression is talking about. So 60 plus 12 NH estimates the price of a job. So the price of a job just by itself is 60. So 12 is some kind of rate times N. What is N? N is the number of landscape N is the number of landscapers who will be working for each hours. We could ignore the second part where it's using N landscapers because it's just trying to be very specific. So you don't have to like see, use like all these information all the time. So you know it will be a rate because it will be the number of landscapers, uh, the number of total hours that each landscaper is working. So if it's the price of a job, it will be the price of the price per landscaper per hour or something similar to that. So since it's a rate, A is pretty possible because it's a per hour. That's how you measure rate. 12 is not a rate. The price of every job increases by $12 every hour. That might be true. Each landscaper works 12 hours a day, which is not true because that's not a rate. So we know it's supposed to be money, so A and C are possible answers. So the charge is $12 per hour for each landscaper. That makes a lot of sense. The price of every job increases by $12 every hour. This is not true because just for price of a job, so for just this job is $60 plus 12 NH for that one. So what this one is saying is that every single job increases by $12 for every hour just for that one job, but it's $12 per hour for a worker. So C is wrong because of interpretation of question. So the answer would be A. This is pretty basic. It might seem like it took a long time, but it really isn't. If you just logic your way through some of the questions, the first logic is that you know this is a rate, so you cross out B and D, and based on like what you're reading from some of the sentences, you cross out like one of the other answers to get the last answer. So you cross out C because it doesn't make sense because of the first sentence. Estimates the price of a job when it's supposed to be just one job, and it's not talking about every job. So the question answer would be A. Which the following is equivalent to is equivalent to the expression shown above. So whenever you see like these kind of expressions where there's like one variable and then another variable and there are these multiple variables, what they're trying to do is that usually it's something that could be factored really easily. So this is a factoring question, which is shown by like the answers below. So technically, since this is a to the fourth, it's either gonna minus, so it's either gonna be like x minus y, parentheses, close parentheses on on that operation times x plus y, or it's gonna be like x plus or minus y is one of them, and then to the power of 2. So since both of these are plus, that it's telling me that it has to be a um a squared answer. Also, the answer choices are telling me that also. So let's say whenever you see something like these answers, what you want to do is just square root like a bunch of like things. So you know 9. So the first one has to be 3. Because square root of 9 equals 3. So square root a fourth is a squared. Uh, damn. Um, excuse me. Can't. My tablet is all wanky right now. So that's a squared. Um, we're gonna ignore the middle term 12a squared b squared right now and just focus on the next term for b because that's what all the answers are showing also. So what you want to do is that for these, you just want to find the square a, a term and the b term because those are the variables. When you're like multiplying them together, they're gonna make the term right here. So it wouldn't matter either way. So square root of 4 is 2 and a square root of b to the fourth is b squared. So this is the power of 2. So think about it. That's if you square both of these, so this multiplied by itself would be 9a to the fourth. That's 6a squared b squared. And then that happens again because it's this one multiplied by this one. Because first it was just this one multiplied by this one. So that's a 6 plus another 6. That's 12. See, you already got the 12 right here. And then the 2b squared makes 4b to the fourth. So this is correct. So we just have to find the answer. So 4 is A. Number 5. If k is greater than 5 and x is equal to 7, in the equation above, what is the value of k? This is just a basic equation question, but now it has to deal with radicals. So we have square root 2k, sorry, 2k squared. My tablet cannot draw 2's, so sorry about that. And pluses, okay. Plus 17 minus x, we're just gonna add x to both sides, so then it's just this is equal to x on the other side, and x is equal to 7 as shown here. So you want to square both sides, so that's 2k squared plus 17 is equal to 49. Now you're gonna subtract 17 from both sides. Equals to 49 minus 17 is 32. This question is a bane of my existence because it uses 2 20 billion times. So then divide by 2 from both sides. K is equal to 16. So k is equal to minus 4 or 4. But since they said here k is greater than 0, it has to be positive. So the only answer is this one. So the answer is 4, which is C. Six. In the xy plane above, line L is parallel to line K. So this is parallel to this. What's the value of P? If they're parallel, that means their slope has to be the same. So let's find the slope here. So that's 0 and 0, 2 and negative 5, 0. So this one is pretty simple. So he has to go 5 to the right and then 2 up. So the slope is 2 over 5. Okay, now we gotta look at here. You have to go from this distance, which is right here. You have to go P amount for 4 up. So you gotta go 4 up for P. So this is just a basic proportion question. So you multiply the 2 by another 2, so that makes 4. And you multiply the 5 by 2, which is 10. So we know this is the same as this. Just multiply by 2 in the top and the bottom and reduce. This is just equivalent to this. And 4 over 10 is equal to 4 over P. So P has the equal 10. The answer is D. Pretty basic question. 7. If x to the power a squared divided by x to the power b squared equals x to the power 16, and x is greater than 1, and a plus b is equal to 2, what's the value of a minus b? First we want to simplify the x a squared divided by x b squared. So x a squared divided by x b squared is just like exponent rule. So a variable that has the same exponent that has the same base, when it's divided by each other, is basically subtracting. So x a squared divided by x b squared is the same thing as x a squared minus x minus b squared, and that is equal to x to the 16. So what's telling me is that a squared minus b squared is equal to 16. So you probably seen this before. If this is subtracting and this is negative, that means, and there's two terms and they're both squared, then it's always gonna factor out something like this: a plus b divided by times a minus b, which is equal to 16. Which makes sense because that makes a squared negative ab positive ab. So negative ab and positive ab cancels out each other to make 0, and b times negative b is negative b squared. So this is equivalent to this. So we already know what a plus b is. It says right here, which is 2. So if this is 2, then a minus b equal 2 times a minus b is equal to 16. So a minus b has to equal 8. Because you just divide 2 by both sides. So a minus b is 8. So when they're asking what's the value of a minus b, it's just 8. So you don't have to simplify it any further. So the answer is A. The measure A is the degrees of an exterior angle of a regular polygon is related to the number of sides n of the polygon by the formula above. If the measure of an exterior angle of a polygon is greater than 50, what's the greatest number of sides it can have? So let's say the angle is 50, right? So n times 50 is equal to 360. So n is equal to 360 divided by 50, which is equal to, since these are both multiply, since this is just 36 times 10 and this is just 50 times 10, I mean, this is just 5 times 10, you would just kind of cancel out the zeros. So this one will go up to 7 because that makes 35.2. So 360 divided by 50 is 7.2. So, what I'll usually do in this case is that I'll plug in two numbers that are like near this. So since n has to be um a whole number, like it has to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all those like numbers. It can't be decimals. That means the number I want to use between is 7 and 8, because 7.2 is right between it. So if we plug in 7 into the equation with 50 here, that'll make 350. So that is less than 360. So 7 works as an answer. So that works. Now let's plug in 8. If we put 8 over here, that's 400. 400 is greater than 360. So that does not work. So what's the greatest number of sides it can have? Um, it can only have 7 sides, because if it has 8 sides, then it says the polygon has an exterior angle greater than 50 degrees. Because if this is like 51, then 51 times 8 would just be like 408, which is even higher. So it's getting higher. But 7 has some room left over, because 7 times 50 is 350, and there's 10 degrees left over. And those 10 degrees, if you increase this by like 51, 52, and like by some number until like 7 times that number is equal to 360, then it's possible to have at 7 sides maximum, but you can't have 8 because it overshots the boundary. So the answer would be C. For these type of questions, you may if you ever have something where you have equation and this one's like some kind of inequality, then most likely you want to test like numbers between those ranges. Like 7.2, you test 7 and 8, and you just find the answer between them. You don't want to find 6 because it gets like too small. But some cases you want to, but for these cases, like they're pretty basic. If you understand it, then you kind of just like test the right numbers. The graph of a line in the xy plane has a slope of 2 and contains the point 1, comma 8. So let's find the equation first. So the equation is y is equal to 2x, since that's the slope, plus some kind of constant. It goes through the point 1, 8. So if x is equal to 1, then that's 2. So we need to add 6 to that equation to make 8. So it has a slope of 2 and it goes through the point 1, 8. So this is correct. So that's the first equation. The graph of the second line passes through the point 1, comma 2 and 2, comma 1. So we're going to think of the slope here. So we got to think of the change of y over the change of x. So the slope is 1 minus 2, that's negative 1. So y equals negative 1 divided by 2 minus 1, which is just 1, x. And then, so this is the same, some kind of constant. So this, so negative 1 divided by 1 is just negative 1. So negative 1x. So it goes through those points. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. So you have to add 3 to this equation. So then you could get, so it goes to the point 1, 2. Now you can also put in this point. So that's negative 2 plus 3 is 1. So this equation is correct. The two lines intersect at point A, B. What is the value of A plus B? So this is just kind of like a system of equations. We just need to find the point of intersection. When I find the point of intersection, I kind of just multiply one equation by negative and just add it because then the y cancels out. So let's just multiply the second equation by negative 1. So that would be negative negative y is equal to x minus 3. Add this equation by this equation, the y turns to 0 because negative y plus y is 0. And then x plus 2x is 3x. And 6 plus negative 3 is 3. So x has to equal to negative 1. Now you put a negative 1 into one of these equations and you get y equal to 4. So what is the value of a plus b? So a plus b, a is equal to negative 1 and b is a 4. So a plus b is equal to 3. So the answer is B. Pretty basic question 2. Number 10. Which of the following has a graph in the xy plane for which y is greater than or equal to negative 1? Um, you guys, like, we just have to go through all the answers. So A would be an absolute value graph. Since the negative 2 is outside the graph, it's going to start at 0. So just think of x is equal to 0. That means it's going to start at negative 2. So it's just going to start right here. So this one right here is negative 2. But it's at the origin. So it's at 0, negative 2. That's how it's going to look. B would be the same concept. It's going to be at 0, negative 2. But now instead of this V, we're going to have this curve. It's going to just be a parabola. And now for C, since the negative 2 is inside, it means it has to be at 2. Because 2 minus negative 2 is 0. So that's how I ever remember it. So it's going to be like an equation that touches the point right here at 2, 0. Right here is 2. And that's also negative 2. And this would be our last graph, graph D. And that's x cubed minus 2. So it's got to go through 0, negative 2 also right here. But for like cubics, they usually make this kind of like a parabola plus another parabola. But it's kind of like flipped over. So it's kind of have like that. So it has one hump and then goes down and makes another hump. So which of them has for which the y value is greater than or equal to negative 1? We would cross out answer D because right here, as is shown, it goes through every single y value. So that's not right. Greater than or equal to negative 1. Uh, Answers A and B, they look exactly the same because it goes through negative 2 to above. So any number negative 2 and above is wrong. So B and A are incorrect. So that only leaves answer C, which makes sense because it's greater than or equal to negative 1. Because there's only got to be 0 or above. So the answer is C. This is just like a process and elimination question. You just have to draw every graph out. They're also really basic graphs, you know. It's an absolute value, a quadratic, another quadratic, and a cubic. You ever see a cubic or a quartic? They probably go through every single point, so just don't do anything with those. Only parabolas have like restricted um parabolas and absolute values, and any graph like similar to those, how they look. They're the only ones with like restrictive y values. Something like logistics and rationals, some rationals, not all of them. You just gotta think how it works. Which of the following complex numbers is equivalent to 3 minus 5i and 8 plus 2i? For these types, you just want to multiply by like by a factor on the bottom to make the bottom like actually a real number. So 3 minus 5i all over 8 plus 2i. multiply by, this is actually really easy to do. If you just look at the denominator. So have you ever seen this? You have to write the exact same constants. You have an 8. The first one's a 8. But then the next number has to be the negative version of that number. So that would be negative 2i. That's all you have to write. And you have to write that also on the top. And then that equals to something. So 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. And 8 times 2 here would be 16. Both of them are 16i or negative. This is negative 16i and this is 16i. So those cancel. Those add up to 0 because negative 16 and 16 adds to 0. And then negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. But I is equal to square root negative 1. So basically that's just going to be negative 1 times negative 4. So that's 4. So that adds a 4. And then we have here, so 3 times 8 is 24. 24. Sorry, my tablet is being weird right now. Okay. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 8 times 5 is negative 40. So negative 40 plus negative 6 is negative 46. And negative 5 times negative 2 is 10. And with the I squared, that's negative 10. Okay. So that is similar. So this altogether is just 14 minus 16i divided by 68. Since they're all evens, we could divide by 2, so that's 7 minus 8i. I mean, that's not, sorry, that's 46. Minus, minus 23i over 34. So the answer would be C. Pretty basic complex numbers. What these are trying to tell you is to rationalize the complex, because there's two complex right here. There's a complex 3 minus 5i and a complex 8 plus 2i, and they just want to make one complex, as shown like in the in all the possible answers. Now, question 12. A website uses the formula above to calculate the raters selling R based on the number of favorable reviews F and unfavorable reviews N, which of the following expresses the number of favorable reviews in terms of the other variables. So you want to have F is equal to something, as shown by the answers. So what you want to do first is that multiply by both sides by N plus 4. So R, that makes Rn plus Rf is equal to F. Because that's true, just NF to the other side. So this is the same thing. If you take out the R, that's just R times parentheses N plus F parentheses. And that's just, if you divide that from both sides, you just F divided by N plus F is equal to R. So this is the same thing as this. Now we just want to get F all the way to one side. So that's Rn is equal to F minus Rf. Now we want to take out the F from both sides. So that's F. Distribute F out. So that's F divided by F is 1. And RF divided by F is negative R. So this thing is equivalent to that. Now you want to divide this all by the other side. So Rn divided by 1 minus R is equal to F. So this is the answer. So we gotta look for B. So the answer is B. See, we're a little bit more than halfway through with this non-calculator exam now. What is the value of all possible of all sums of m that satisfy the equation of 2m squared minus 16m plus 8 is equal to 0? There's a trick to this actually. So if they say the sum of all possible values of m, and it says all values, and because sometimes there are imaginary uh values for this. It's either imaginary or there's the double. So the only cases that like this never works for is that like if it's like x minus 1 squared, but it goes to x squared minus 2x plus 1. I'll show you why this doesn't work right now, because what you want to do is that you just want to find the second term, which is 16, right? So let's say it's 16. Since this equation is multiplied by 2 because there's a 2 in front of here, just divide that first by 2. So that makes 8. This has to be negative, though. This has to be negative. If this is positive, then this is negative 16. Okay? So there'll be negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. So if this is 16, if this is negative 16 just by itself right here, so this would just be 16 divided by 2 is 8. So, then have 8. 8 is the sum of all the possible values. Like 8 is the answer. So the answer is would be D, because I could show you why it's true. Because let's just say you have two roots, a and b, right? So that's x minus a and x minus b. So what's gonna distribute out to is x squared minus a plus b, which parentheses in x, plus ab. So the sum of all values is right here. So it's negative parentheses a plus b. It's the same thing here. Since if you multiply this by 2, then this is also multiplied by 2, and this is also multiplied by 2. So you gotta divide by 2, so that's 8. So a plus b is equal to 2, and a plus b is the sum of all terms. So that's why I said x minus 1 squared is not true. The sum of all values, there's only one value, there's 1. But then since this distribute out to x squared minus 2x plus 1, uh, and you think the answer is 2, which is not, because it's just 1 twice. So that's the only time it doesn't work. Another time is like if you're working with imaginary numbers. So it works with something like uh mm, actually it yeah, the only time it doesn't work with imaginary numbers is that if it says all real answers. Like it says all values, so not all real values. If it's all real values and they have I, then it might not work, because because let's say you have x minus 2i and x plus 2i, so it'll become x squared. The 2ix and negative 2ix cancel each other, so that's negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. I squared is negative 1, so that makes plus 4. And the answer is since there's no x squared value, that means the sum of the values equals 0, which is true because that's 2i and that's negative 2i, and you add them together is 0. So that's a true. So this also applies to imaginary numbers, but it based on what the question is asking. If it's asking for just all values, then imaginary numbers are the answer. And this only works for quadratics. I mean, this doesn't just work for quadratics. For quadratics, it's just gonna be the second term. For cubics, it's the cubics, there's four terms. There's the x to the cube, x squared, x, and the constant. So the thing in front of the second, like the x squared term, that is gonna be the sum. Divide by like the constant in front of the x cubed. So if it's like 2x cubed minus 6x squared, then it's just 6 divided by 2. So that's 3. So the answer is true there. This applies all the time. It works all the time. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. So that's how you solve it. That's the answer is just D. So it's just that fast. I just show you all the work, so you don't have to do this work every single time. So if you know the trick, it's just 16 divided by 2 is 8. So the sum of all values. Tips and tricks. Tips and tricks. 14. A radioactive substance decay at an annual rate of 13%. If the initial amount of the substance is 325 grams, which the following a granted is the remaining amount of substance 2 years later. Um, uh, as I said before in like my specific contents cover on exponentials, for exponentials, 325 would be the beginning value. So it has to be 325. So C and D would be wrong. And it decays at 13%. The percentage for rate in the parentheses is just 1 plus the percentage. Since this is decaying at 30%, is negative 13%. So 1 minus 13% is 0.87. So the answer is A. It's just that easy. You just gotta understand how exponentials are working. The expression 5x minus 2 divided by x plus 3 is equivalent to which of the following answers? Um, since this can't be divided into like a actual like number, because 5 is not true, A is not true and B is not true, because you can't like just take out the x. It doesn't work like that. So what you want to do is that you want to have x plus 3 divided by 5x minus 2. Remember how you like in like some of your elementary school years is like you divide it by divide like 2 divided by 32, and then you put 1 here, so you put 2 here, you minus it, that's 1 and that's 12, and then you put 6 here because 6 times 2 is 12, and you subtract it and that makes 0. So that's basically the same concept. We're gonna do the exact same thing but linear equations. So oh shoot, x plus 3 divided by 5x minus 2. So we want to multiply by 5 because the first term is 5x. So that's 5x plus 15. We just go subtract that. So that cancels out. So that's negative 15, so negative 17. Or negative 17 left over. So what this is written as is like a mixed fraction. It's just like 5 over negative 17 and x plus 3. Which is the same thing as just 5 plus 5 plus negative 17 over x plus 3. So that's the same thing as D. The answer is D. Okay, so 15. We're 3/4 of the way done. We have 5 more to go. And they're all free responses. I guess you could read the rules all the time, but basically just don't mark it wrong, I guess. I don't know. Question 16. The sales manager of a company is awarded a total of $3,000 in bonuses to the most productive salespeople. If the bonuses were awarded in amounts of 250 or 750, if at least one 250 and at least one 750 were awarded, what's the one possible number of 250 bonuses awarded? So let's just write the system first. So it's 250. Let's say the amount of people that got 250 is x, and the amount of people that got 750 is y. So that makes $3,000 in total. Now we have to say they said x has to be at least 1, so it's greater than or equal to 1, and y is greater than or equal to 1. And these x and y both has to be integers. So what's one possible number of bonuses award? Let's start dividing this number because 750 is just 250 times 3. So we divide by 250 from both sides. We have x plus 3y. So 250 times 4 is 1,000. So 3,000 is just 4 times 3, which is 12, which is true. So if y is equal to 1, right? Then x, that makes 3, so 12 minus 3 is 9. So y equals 9. If y is equal to 2, no. That makes 6. That makes 6 here. So y is equal to, sorry? Y is equal to 3. That makes 9, and that's 3. If this is 4, that's 12, and x has to be greater than 1, or equal to 1. So this is not. So these are the only possible values. So x is 3, 6, or 9. Number 17. In the equation above, a, b, and c are constants. If the equation is true for all values of x, what is the value of b? Since it's true for all values of x, that means the equation on the right has to be the same as the equation on the left. So let's distribute that out first. So 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 2x plus 5, 2x times 5 is plus 10x. Okay, and next part, 3 times 3x is 9x. And 3 times 5 is 15. So we have 6x squared plus 19x plus 15 is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So what's the value of b? B is 19. It's just that simple. Okay, question 18. In the figure above, AE is parallel to CD, and segment AD intersects CE at B. What's the length of CE? Let's draw this out first. Might not be the best representation, but basically the same thing. So this is parallel to this. If this is parallel to this, what it's telling me is that these side lengths are proportional. So this is 10, this is 8, and this is 5. So let's say call this x, right? X divided by 8 is the same thing as 5 divided by 10. Because these are similar triangles. So this triangle is similar to this triangle. Because this angle is similar to this angle, and this angle right here is similar to this angle. And this angle right here is similar to this angle. Right? So if you kind of just have one finger for each of the side, you kind of just like rotate your fingers from one shape to the other shape, then you kind of understand like how it works, like where the angle goes. So the 10 has to go with the 5, and the 8 goes with the x. So this has to be the right proportion. So this simplifies to 1/2. So you multiply the top and bottom by 4. That's 4/8. So x has to equal to 4. Since it's looking for the length of CE, and CB is equal to 4 because that's x, then 4 plus 8 is 12. So the answer is 12. Okay, number 19. In the xy plane above, 0 is the center of the circle, and the measure of AOB is pi over a radians. What's the value of a? First we want to understand, since it's going to 0 and 0 is the origin, then because it's centered at the point, it looks like it goes to the origin, then it goes to the point square root 3a. So I really don't care what the circle says, but I want to care what the triangle says. So it goes through this triangle, this right triangle. So imagine this, but you make a line from point A, and you make it straight down, right? Then 0 right here is the point right here. This is A, and it's going straight down. So we want to find this angle right here. So it goes through the point square root 3, 1. So it goes through square root 3 and then goes up that point. So this line is square root 3. And this is 1. So this is a right triangle, so that follows the Pythagorean theorem. So square root 3 squared is just 3. 1 squared is just 1. So 3 plus 1 is 4. And then square root that is 2. So, what is, we want to find this degrees. So let's say sine, right? So sine of, let's call this x. Sine of x is equal to 1 over 2. Where have you ever seen that? That is sine of x. There's only like a few specific right triangles that you'll ever know. Because sine of 30 is 1/2. Right? And then sine of 60, of 45 is equal to square root 2 over 2. And sine of 60 is equal to square root 3 over 2. To review, sine of 30 is 1 over 2, sine of 40 is square root 2 over 2, and sine of 60 is square root 3 over 2. Those are the only three that they would probably expect you to know. So since for sine of x is equal to 1/2, it's only sine of 30. So that's 30 degrees. So what's 30 degrees in radians? An easy conversion is that degrees, one 30 degrees multiplied by one radian is equal to 180 degrees. So this is just pi over 6. I mean, pi radians. Pi radians equals 180 degrees. So that's pi over 6. So A is equal to 6. This mostly is just testing you on your trig. It might look like it's a geometry question, but it really isn't. If you make your pictures, it's really easy. So that's why whenever I tell you to to draw a picture for a trig, this is how you do it. So in the sixth equation above, a and b are constant. If a and b has infinite many solutions, what's the value of a divided by b? Since this has to be infinite many equations, they have to be exact same equation. So since I see a 12 here and I see a 60 here, multiply the 5 equation by 5. Because 12 times 5 is 60. So this is 5a plus 5ax plus 5by is equal to 60. So that is 2x plus 8y is equal to 60. So 5a is equal to 2, so a is equal to 2 over 5. 5b is equal to 8, so b is equal to 8 divided by 5. So that's true. I messed up and I thought that was a 5, so it looks bad because of that. So what's a divided by b? So 2 over 5 divided by 8 over 5 is just 2 over 8. So that equals to 1/4. So the answer is 1/4. Okay, based on these questions, probably just work on the free response first because all these are actually pretty simple. None of them are really hard. So they're like a minute or less on each of these questions. 13 might be hard. It might take you time, but it's not really. If you just factor out the regular method, which I didn't use here, then then it wouldn't take that long. But if you know my method and you just memorize that, then it's probably gonna take you a few seconds. 14, pretty simple. 15 might take a while, but it's not that hard. Each of these should be like under a minute or so. Um, I will come back to double check like 15, and I won't double check the free responses though. You might want to, but you might not. So if you want to double check 15, because you might have gotten it wrong. 12 you might want to double check. 11 you might double check. 9 and 10 not that much. It's not that hard. These two are really easy. These are also kind of easy, but it shouldn't take that much time either. But you might want to double check it just in case. 6 and 5 not that hard. You might want to check 5 because you might have did the radical wrong. You might want to check 7 because based on the way I did it, it might be wrong because you want to maybe find A and B, but you don't really have to based on the way I did it. 8 you might want to check. 4 you might want to check. This question is not the hardest. Never mind. 3 you might want to check because this thing is really long and you might have misread something. 2 you really don't need to. 1 you don't need to either. So you might just check these. All these are like pretty simple, so I doubt you could actually get like one wrong, maybe. So if you got one wrong, it means you made a mistake, probably. As you practice more, if you got like one wrong, like intentionally, like you just didn't know how to solve it, then just practice more. The practice makes perfect. It just works better. Now the next section, math test calculator. For as I said, the formulas are here on the bottom, so it'll help a lot for you to just memorize it. Uh, if you ever need it, like there's the 3Ds and the 2Ds. Special right triangles, like what I said about sine of 60 and sine of like 45 and stuff, it shows it right here. So if you ever need to use it. Because I don't think they expect you to like remember everything. But this SAT is really basic stuff. But I'm majoring in math, so this is like pretty basic to me. A musician has a new song available for downloading or streaming. A musician earns 9 cents each time a song is downloaded and point 2 of a cent each time the song is streamed. Which of the following represents the amount of dollars if the musician earns if the song is downloaded D times and stream S times? Okay, so downloaded is 0.09. That's D, and streamed is 0.02. S. So that is the total amount of money. So 0.9 plus 0.2, that's the answer is C. Pretty basic question. A quality control management at a factory selects 7 light bulbs at random for inspection out of every 400 light bulbs. At a rate, how many light bulbs will be inspected if a factory produces 20,000 light bulbs? So this is a proportion question. So it's just a 7,000 divided by 400 is let's say how many would have been inspected? That would be X divided by oops, I thought that was before 20,000. So first we need to get this number to 20,000. So what multiplies to 4 gets a 2 or like a 20? That's a 5. So 5 times that is 2,000. So you gotta multiply by another 10, so make 20,000. So 7 times 50 equals 350. The x is 300 is equal to 350. So the answer is B. Okay, question 3. One end of a spring is attached to a ceiling. When a object at mass m is attached to the other end of the spring is stretched to a length of L centimeters as shown in the equation above. What is m when L is 73? So this is just a basic um equation question. So 73 is equal to 24m plus 3.5m. I mean 24 plus 3.5m. So minus 24, that is 49, is equal to 3.5m. So 49 divided by 3.5, m is equal to, you might want to use your calculator for this. So any of these like numbers, like working with decimals, you might just want to use a calculator. You get 14. So the answer is A. Pretty basic question. Question 4. Question 4 arrived refers to the following information. The amount of money a performer earns is directly proportional to the amount of people attending, so it's proportional. The performer earns $120 for 8 people. How many money will a performer earn when 20 people attend? So this is proportional. So $120 for 8 people is equal to X amount of dollars for 20 people. So what? So you could just like cross multiply. So 20 times 120 is equal to 8 times x. So just divide by 8 from both sides and use your calculator. So 20 times 120 divided by 8 is $300. So the answer is just C. Pretty basic. Okay. A performer uses 43% of the money earned to pay the cost. The rest is earned. What is earned money? What is the profit the performer makes at the performance when 8 people attend? So 8 people is $120, which is shown right here. So she used 43%. So what? So the thing she earned is 1 minus the money that she used to pay back, so 0.43. So based on using your calculator, 1 minus 0.43 is 0.57 times 120, which is $68.40, which is answer C. 3, 4, and 5 are pretty basic. When 4 times the number x is added to 12, the result is 8. What's the number result when 2 times x is added to 7? So 4x plus 12 equals to 8. And they're asking what happens when 2x plus 7 is equal to. So we need to find what x is first. So 8 minus 12 is negative 4. So x is equal to negative 1. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 7 equals 5. So the answer is 5. So the answer is B. This is just a basic, like, a word equation problem. They just put it in word form to make it more difficult, just so you have to read more. So the only reason you get this wrong is that you might have misread it. The equation above represents a parabola in the xy plane. Which of the following equivalent forms of the equation displays the x-coordinates of the parabola as constants of the coefficients? If you want to display a parabola with just the x-coordinates, it's just x minus a times x minus b. This is the form you want to put it in. Sorry, this looks bad. Yeah, that's what you want to put it in. So we gotta find out what multiplies to 8, but adds together to get negative 6. So usually for these is never like 1 times that number. So it's not 1 times 8. Usually it's not something like that. So you want to use like the other numbers. The only other one is 2 and 4. So since this is negative and this positive, both of 2 and 4 has to be negative. So it would be x minus 2 and x minus 4, which makes sense because that's x squared, that's negative 4x, that's negative 2x, that makes negative 6x, and negative 2 times negative 4 is 8. So this is the right equation. So the answer is D. See, pretty simple, right? That's why when people ask like how hard the SAT is, not really that hard. Except for like the English and grammar, which I really suck. Like major, can't say the word on the internet. But you get the point. I'm really bad at it. Question 8. In the video game, each player starts the game with K points and loses 2 points each time a task is not completed. If a player gains no additional points and fails to complete 100 tasks and has a score of 200 points, what is the value of K? So, so you start off with K points, right? And then you minus 2 points for each loss to make your new score. Let's say that's N. So they're saying like if you have K points in the beginning and you lost 100 times and your new score is 200, what is K? So K, 2 times 100 is just 200, so 200 plus 200 is 400. So the answer is just D. Number 9. A worker uses a forklift to move boxes that weigh either 40 or 60 pounds each. Let X be the number of 40-pound boxes and Y be the number of 65-pound boxes. A forklift could carry up to either 48 boxes or a weight of 2,400, which the following is the system qualities. First, we want to find out the amount of weight they could carry. So that's the amount of 40 is X, so 40X. And the number of 65 is y, plus 65y. Since it can't go over 2,400, it's either less than or equal to 2,400. And we need to find out the amount of boxes there are. So the amount of x there's X amount of 40 boxes and Y amount of 65 boxes. And there's less than or equal to 45. But you can't have more than 45 boxes. So we gotta find these equations. So that would be equal to A. This is more just about setting up like system equations than anything else. Not really that hard. A function f satisfy f2 is equal to 3 and f3 is equal to 5. A function satisfies g of 3 is equal to 2 and g of 5 is equal to 6. What's that value of f of g of 3? So you want to work inside it and then out. So first we want to find g of 3. G of 3 is equal to 2. So what is so this would just be equal to 2. So f of 2. So what is f of 2? So f of 2 is 3. So the answer is just B. It's just that easy. Just don't worry about like just work from one of them, then to the other one, and then to the other one. So it's like G, F, and then another G. Then you work on the G one, then the F one, and then work on the other G one. So inside out, inside out. Okay. Question 11. Tony is planning to read a novel. The table above shows information about the novel. Tony's reading speed and the amount of time he plans to spend reading the novel each day. If Tony reads at a rate given at the table, which of the following is closest to the number of days it would take Tony to read the entire novel? So the number of hours Tony plans to read the novel per day is 3 hours. So he reads um 3 hours per day. The number of parts in the novel is 8, and the number of chapters in the novel is 239, and the number of words per minute he reads. Wait, 1078 is the number of pages in the book, and number of words in the novel. Oh, sorry, I don't know why I wrote the 3. Number of words in the novel. So we need to find his reading speed first. So the number of words he reads per minute is 2,500. It's 250 words per minute. So how many words are in the novel? This much. So you want to use your calculator. So we have 349,168 divided by 250 words per minute. So that's about 1,396.672 um words, I mean minutes that he reads. So how many minutes is that? How many like hours is that? So there's 60 minutes in an hour. So this is equal to 23 about 23.28 hours. Since he only reads based on like the top one right here, it says he only reads 3 hours per day. You gotta divide that answer by 3. So he reads about 7.76 for 7.76 days. Um Based on like everything from the chart. So this is just a basic chart question. So the answer would be B. Number 12. On January 1st, 2000, like actually for number 11 to go back, like the only reason you might want to double check this because there's basically so much information from the chart, and that's the only reason you ever get it wrong. But mostly it's just a calculator question. On January 1st, 2000, there were 175,000 tons of trash in a landfill that has a capacity of 325,000 tons. Each year since then, the amount of trash in land increased by 7,500 tons. If Y represents the time years after January 2001, which of the following describes the set of years where the landfill is or at our greatest capacity? Um, we have, since this is increasing by 7,000 per year, this has to be like some kind of rate. So it would be 7,500 times some kind of variable, and the variable is y. So you have to find those together. So A is not correct, so it only leaves B, C, and D. So um Oh, right here. It has to be D because B is not right because you already have 175,000 tons and 325 was the capacity. So you had to subtract that number. But then when you subtract that number, this one's wrong because that would be 150, which is the right subtraction, but it's greater than that value. But you want it to be like is or above capacity. So this one is it's not greater than or equal to, it's less than or equal to. So D is right because 175,000 plus that rate has to be greater than the capacity. So that's right. Answer is D. A researcher conducts a survey to determine whether people in a certain large town prefer watching sports on television to attending the sporting event. The researchers asked 170 people who visit a local restaurant on a Saturday, and 7 people refused to respond. Which of the following factors make it likely that a reliable conclusion can be drawn about the sport watching preference of all the people in the town? Make it least likely. Um, uh, uh, Probably not sample size because based on like stats because I took stats class. Like how do I say this? It's because if you have like a low sample size, then it's not a really good sample to like get your. Because imagine this: would your sample be better if you ask 3 people a question, or if you ask like 1,000 people? See that's why the reason was. So you can't really say anything about sample size because it didn't say like if it's a small sample size because 117 people might be a lot in that town, so I can't really tell. The population size. Okay, the population size doesn't matter at all in statistics because like if we have like 3 trillion people in the world, like I don't know how much people are in the world right now. So like, does it matter if it's like 2 trillion versus 3 trillion? Like, who cares? Like, population size does not matter. The number of people who refuse to respond. Um, mm, that might be a possible answer. And where the survey was given. That's also a possible answer because you got to find the answers with biases. So because there might be some because like people that respond to a survey might be more like extremists because they want to give an answer. Because if you're like more shy and you want to think of you, but you're too shy to give the answer, then it's something like that. It gives bias to like testing. So can be drawn about the sports watching preference of other people. So I would say it's D because based on the people that respond, there's only 7 people that did not respond. So that is not really that much people. So I doubt this has um the reason. So D would probably be the answer because where it was given because the question was asking did they prefer to watch on television are attending a sport event and they went up to just a local restaurant. So people that go to a restaurant, like usually in a local restaurant, there might be a TV, so they might just watch it on the television and not go to the event because based on like where it's geographically located, and that's probably the reason. See, it just conflicts with the intention of the test. So D would be the answer. According to the line of best fit in the scatter plot above, which of the following best approximates the year in which the number of miles traveled by air passengers in country X was estimated to be 550 billion? So we gotta look at 550 billion here. So right here, about this line, between 500 and 600, that's about close to 2005, but just a little bit below. So it might be like 2003. So it's like C. So that's a basic chart answering question, not that hard. A distance traveled by Earth in one orbit makes around the sun is 580 million miles. Earth makes one complete orbit around the Earth in 1 year. Of the following, which is closest to the average speed of the sun in miles per hour as it orbits the Earth? Okay, so it goes 5,800 million miles per 1 year. In 1 year, there is 365 days, right? So you gotta divide this number by 365. That's one. And you also, so base, and also, so that means there's 365 days in the year, and each of those days have 24 hours. So you're looking for miles per hours. So that is, you also, then you divide that number by 120, by, I mean, 20, just 24 hours to get the miles per hour. So you got 580 million. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, divided by 365 days, divided by 24 hours. And you got about like 66,000. So the answer is A. Number 16. Results of the bar exam of law school graduates. The table above summarizes the results of 200 law students who took the bar exam. If one of the survey graduates who passed the bar exam is chosen at random for interview, what's the probability that person did not take the exam? Who passed the bar exam? Pass bar exam is right here, so 18 plus 7, so that's 25. So out of those 25 people, what's the probability that he did not take the thing? So that's 7. So 7 out of 25. So the answer is B. Pretty basic. 17. The atomic weight of a known element is approximately 20% less than that of calcium. The The atomic weight of calcium is 40 AMU, which the following is the best approximation of the known element. So it's 20% less than that of calcium, and calcium is 40. So 20% less means that it's 80% of the total amount. So 80% of 40, it's 32, I think. So the answer is C. A survey was taken was A survey was taken of the values of the homes in the country, and it was found that the mean house value was $165,000, and the mean value was $125,000. Which the following situations could explain the difference between the mean and the median home values in the country? Um, the homes that have values that are close. We gotta look at the answer for these questions, type of questions. So, we're asking about mean versus median. So the homes have values that are close to each other. That is not true because if the values of the homes are close to each other, if they're close to each other, that means the mean and median has to be close to each other. So answer A is not correct. There are a few homes that are valued much less than the rest. So, uh, well, that is not true because if there are a few homes that are valued much less than the other ones, that means the mean has to be way lower. Because think about it. Let's say you have a group of numbers. You have like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., and just a bunch of really like high numbers, like higher than 4, like let's say like 10, 20, and 30. Um, and you have like another group that's 1, 1, 1, 1, etc., and all those numbers are the same thing as this numbers, but really high also. So this, let's say like 10, 20, 30, and this is like 10, 20, 30. These are exactly the same numbers. Since these groups are exactly the same amount of numbers, but this one has ones, this mean has to be less than this mean. Makes sense, right? But the median does not change because it's the same amount of numbers. Because these numbers are greater than these, and these are greater than these. So there's just gotta be have that, and these numbers are the same, then the mean median has to be different. So if these are like real way lower, which represents this situation, if this is way lower than these numbers, then the mean has to be going down, which makes sense because then the mean here, and then you make it even lower, and that mean is right here, but this means also goes way down. So question B, so answer B is incorrect because the mean is supposed to go down, but instead it's bigger than the median. There are a few homes that are valued much more than the rest of the thing. C and B contradict each other, so that's how you find the answers, because it's either one or the other. So C is the correct one because there's some homes that are way bigger than the value. So instead of like 111, it would just be like 3333 and etc. So right, so the mean increased by a lot. So the mean will be greater than the median. Because let's say the median is 2, right? All these threes would make it way bigger. That's why the mean is higher. Many of the homes have values between $125,000 and $65,000. This is not true because the median is 125,000. So it'd be even some numbers lower than that. It says many of it. Like we don't know it's many of it because the mean it doesn't really tell us like number. The median tells us that like 50% is lower than this and 50% is higher than this. So this is like somewhere less than 50%. So we don't know. So we don't know how big it is. So there might be even more between like 125,000 and 175,000. So we can't tell. So this can't be answered. It's too vague. So 18 would be C. But these type of like questions, if you just don't know, you kind of just logic your way through it. So you always just want to look for conflicting like answers. So B and C are conflicting, so one of them has to be wrong, and the other one's the answer. Question 19. The only reason that approach might not work is that both of them are they conflict each other, but both of them are both vague, so they can't give you an answer. So that's the only reason. But I doubt SAT does that a lot. Question 19 and 20 refers to the following information. A sociologist choose 300 students at random from each of the two schools and asks each student how many siblings he has. The results are shown in the table below. There are a total of 2,400 students at Lincoln School and 3,300 students at Washington School. What is the mean number of siblings for all the students surveyed? Number of siblings. The median. The median, you just gotta look through like since there's 2,400 students and 3,300 students, we gotta add that together. So 2,400 plus 3,300, that's 5,700. You divide that number by 2 because you want to look for the median. So you want to look at the 50%. So that's 2,850. So we gotta look for that number, or like somewhere close to that number. So there's 120 kids from Lincoln Park at 0, plus 140 kids from Washington. That's 260, not close to 2,850. So you add that number by 80 and 110 because of the one sibling. That's 450 in total, which is still not close to. Wait, no, never mind. It's 300 students, not that one. So ignore the first step. It's just 300 students. So 300 divided by 2 is 150. So we need to look for like the 150 mark. So there's 120 students plus 140. That's 260. And we only need. Wait, what? Oh, from each of the two schools. So we have to look for the 300 student from from both schools, because 300 from Lincoln Park and 300 from Washington. Sorry about that. So 120 plus 140, that's 260, and we need to find 300. So 80 plus 110 plus 260 is obviously greater than 300. So it's gotta be 1. So the answer is B. Um, I mean, wait, that's true. Yeah, the answer is B. Uh, 20. Based on the survey data, which of the following most accurately compares the expected total number of students with 4 siblings at 2 schools? The total number of students with 4 siblings expected to be equal at 2 schools, which is true. Expected to be equal. The total amount of students with 4 siblings at Lincoln Park is 30 more than this, which is not true because they're both equal. With 4 siblings at Washington, is 30 more. So they just switched to Washington and Lincoln Park and added 10, which is not. I mean, subtracted 10, which is not true. Be 900 more than that, which is not true because you only have a survey at 300. So this is not even possible. So the only possible answer of 20 is A. So the answer is A. 21. A project manager estimates that a project would take X hours to complete, where X is greater than 100. Actually, I need to look through 20. It might be wrong. 20. What? The total amount of students with 4 siblings at Washington is expected to be 30 more than the students at. Oh, okay. It says the total amount because these things are working with proportions. So that's 10 out of 300, right? And there's 3,300 students from Washington. So that's 10 divided by 300. So that's 110. So there's 110 students that are expected to have 4 siblings. And you have 10 out of divided by 300 per proportion of the 2,400, which is equal to 80 students from Lincoln Park. So Washington will be expected to have 30 kids more than Lincoln Park because there's 110 in Washington and 80 Lincoln Park. I mean, just Lincoln Park. Okay, sorry, based on just how the school that I know of, I just call it Lincoln. So it will be 30. So that would be there's 30 kids more from Washington. So the answer is C, not A. I'm sorry about that. The project manager estimates that a project would take X hours to complete, where X is greater than 100. The goal is for the estimate to be within 10 hours at a time. It will be actually take. The goal is for the estimate to be within 10 hours of the time it will actually take to complete the project. If the project meets the goal and it takes Y hours to complete the um, project, which the following inequalities represent the equation between the estimate time and the actual time. So as be within 10 hours of the time. So you estimate it to be X hours and it takes Y hours to complete. So within 10 hours, which is true because so we want to find if it's within 10. So it's like negative 10 to 10. So the only one that makes sense is D because it's within that time limit. And it's Y minus X because Y is the actual amount of time and X is the estimate. So the actual would be that amount. Okay. Question 22 and 23 refer to the following information. A large distance R from the radio antenna, the intensity is L and the power of the signal is P, which the following expresses the square of the distance from the um, radio antenna. So we want to look for R squared. So we gotta move R to the other side. We gotta move R to the other side. So it's 4 pi R squared times I is equal to P. So we want to just have R squared. So R squared is equal to P divided by I, because from here, times pi times 4. So we gotta look for that. 4 pi I. So the answer is B. From the same signal emitted by the radio antenna, observer A measures intensity to be about 16 times measured by uh, observer B. The distance observer A from a ratio antenna is what fractions to the distance observer B from that antenna. So okay. So a large distance r from the and the intensity. The intensity is I. So intensity is 16 times observed from B. So if it's let's say intensity B is B, so it's equal to P over 4. The distance, uh, we'll call that P1. So P1 4 pi r squared, and then A is 16 times more than that, so that's 16B equals P2 divided by 4 pi r squared. So what's the rate? What's the fraction? What's the distance from ratio A to the distance from observer A from the ratio antenna is what fraction of distance from B? So this is B and this is A, so you gotta divide them. So that's 1 over 16 is equal to P1 over P2. Sorry, P2, which is true because of the distance from the other distance. So it's 1 over 16. So 23 is B. Actually, oops, I'm sorry. We're looking for R. So this P1 and P2 are exactly the same. So it's R1 and R2. So you divide them together. Sorry, I need to get my eraser. Right here. Huh? Now back. 1. Okay. So this divided by B divided by A is 1 over 16. Is R is R2 squared, but divided by R1 squared. And then you square root it, so it's 1/4. So equals to R1 over R2, which is the ratio distance. So the answer is is A. 24. The equation of the circle in the xy plane is shown above. What is the radius of the circle? You want to put this in standard form. So you ever see all these constants like 4x and 2y, like only those? You want to just divide that answer by 2 and just write it in the parentheses. So what you do is that you have x, so that's x. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, so that's plus 2. So plus 2, and then you square it. And then you add y, so -2 divided by 2 is -1, so -2 squared. So you gotta think about what like value this is supposed to equal to, because that makes x squared plus 4x. If you think about it, that makes sense, and that plus 4. So there's a 4 remaining over. So this is y squared minus 2y, same thing right here. So this plus 1, there's a 4 remaining over, and that's all supposed to equal -1 because from the side. So you have a 4 left over and a 1 left over. So you gotta have this adds up to 5. So yeah, you have to add a 5 here. So that makes 4. The radius is just square root of this side. So square root of 4 is 2. So the radius is A. 25. The graph of the linear function f has intercepts a0 and 0b. If a plus b is 0 and a is not equal to b, which the following is true about the slope of the graph. So you have a and b, but a plus b is equal to 0. So uh, let's say b is right here, right? So 0b and a 0. So a plus b has to equal to 0. And a is not equal to b. So what it's telling me is that the graph adds up has to be 0. So one of them has to be negative. So never mind, this graph is wrong. So based on these process, like even if you're wrong the first time making the graph, usually you just want to spend the time to understand like these process. So you just want to go step by step. So this is A and this is B. But like A plus B will equal to 0. So that's negative and that's 0. So you see the graph is positive. So the answer is A. See, making pictures are like your friend. So pretty basic question. The complete graph of the function f is shown in the xy plane above. Which of the following is equal to 1? So f of -4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's true. So 1 is true. F of 3 divided by 2, which is just f of 1.5. So that's 1. And 1.5 is right here. So that's also 1. So that's true. F of 3. So f 1, 2, 3, 1. Which is true. So all these three are true. So it's D. 27. The samp the two samples of water of equal mass are heated to 60 degrees Celsius. One sample is poured into insulated container and the other is poured into a non-insulated. The sample are left for 70 minutes to cool in a room having 25. The graph shows above for 10-minute intervals. Which the following correctly compares the rate at which the temperatures are decreasing. In every 10 minutes, the magnitude of the rate of change of the insulated, which is right here, is greater than that of the non-insulated. That is not true because this one is moving at slower and this one's moving way faster. But in every 10 minutes, the magnitude of the rate of change of the non-insulated is greater than that of the insulated. This is not true. This kind of looks like it's going by like some kind of constant, but this one's like looping back and it's going like really slow here. So in intervals from 0 to 10 and the intervals from 0 to 10 minutes and from 10 to 20 minutes, the rate of change and the insulated are of the same magnitude, which is true. Well, never mind, it's not true because this goes down here and this one goes here. But these two look like it went exactly the same. Intervals from 10 to 20 are greater magnitudes. The rate of temperature for the non-insulated sample are greater. So non-insulated right here. See, that makes sense because this and this are greater than that. But these look like it's exactly the same. And which is shown by hair. So D is the answer. This is basically just a basic graph interpretation. These are just long. And the xy plane above, ABCD is a square, and point E is the center of the square. Coordinates of C is 7, 2, and E is 1, 0. Which of the following is the line that passes through B and D? Okay? So we want to find like this line first. So we want to find what is the slope of CE. So C is 7, 2, and E is 1, 0. So 2 minus 0 is 2, and 7 minus 1 equals 6. So the slope is 1/3. If you think about it, since since this is a square, that means if you draw a line from B to D, that means this point has to be perpendicular to this line. If you think about it, like it just makes sense. So if you don't know, you could always probably just assume. So so uh perpendicular means like it's reciprocal and negative. So reciprocal of this one is 3 and negative is -3. So that's -3. And it has to go through E. So because that's the center of the square. So it has to go through the point 1, 0. So that's -3. That's +3. So the answer is B. So 28 is B. Pretty simple geometry. Well, not really simple. It's kind of hard if you don't know. But but if you don't know, you have to make some assumptions. But other than that, it's pretty simple. For system equations above, A and B are constants. For which of the following values of A and B does the system equation have exactly two real solutions? Um, Values of A and B. So basically, let's just plug in all the answers. So if A is -2 and B is equal to 2, uh, actually, never mind. You don't want to plug in the answers. You want to make a graph. So let's say you have a graph like this, and y is equal to negative this. So you want to make sure that the y-intercept right here is negative. So B has to be negative. It can't. Um, I mean, it doesn't have to be negative. It just has to be less than 3, and it has to be positive because it has to be positive. So it'll concave up. So it has to go this direction. Because if it's negative, it's gonna concave down, and it's gonna be like this. So it's gonna be wrong because it has to go through these lines. So A has to be positive, and B has to be less than 3. So which one is true? So A wrong. B is wrong because these are negative, so these are positive. So cross out A and B. So B and C. Which one's less than or equal to um 3? Well, both of them are actually wrong because they're both not less than 3. So another way to do this is like if this is 3 and this one is above the graph and is going down. So if A is negative and B is greater than 3. Sorry. A is greater than 3. Right? So one is A negative, A or B right here, and it's greater than D right here. So the answer is B. So you gotta think of all possibilities. So if the first one doesn't work, think of another way to work. So think of a parabola, it could go up or it could go down. So just think of both ways. Not that hard, but you just think about it. Uh, figure above shows a regular rectangle with sides length A and a square with length A. If the area of a hexagon is 384 square root 3 square inches, what's the area in square inches of the square? Um, the hexagon, if you think about it, it's made out of just 6 equilateral triangles. And the area of equilateral triangle is just a squared times square root 3 divided by 4. You might want to like memorize it or not. It doesn't really matter. So there's 6 of them, so you gotta multiply this by 6, right? So that's equal to 384 square root 3. So using your calculator, so the side length A is 16. So the area is 256 because 16 squared. So the answer is A. So we finished all the multiple choice. Let's go to the first response. A coastal geologist estimates that a certain country's beaches are eroding at a rate of 1.5 feet per year. According to... I need to erase this first. According to the geologist, how long would it take in years to erode by 21 feet? So 1.5 times x is equal to 21. So just use your calculator on that. So 21 divided by 1.5 is 14. So it takes 14. So pretty basic question for 31. 32. If h hours and 30 minutes is equal to 480 minutes, what's the value of h? So how many minutes are an hour? There's 60 minutes per hour. So 60 times h plus 30 minutes equals the amount of minutes in total. It's equal to 450 minutes. So you subtract that together to get, subtract 30 from both sides to get 60h is equal to 420. And then 60 divided by 420 is 7. So 32 is equal to 7. In the xy plane, the point 3, 6 lies on the graph of the function 3x squared minus bx plus 12. What's the value of b? So you just plug in the equation. So it's 6 is equal to 3 times 3 squared minus b times 3 plus 12. So that's 9, that's 27. So 6 equals 27 minus 3b plus 12. So 6 equals 39 minus 3b. So 3b is equal to 33. So B is equal to 11. Pretty basic. It just works with like going through like the parabola. It's just a basic parabola question, or just basic plugging in substituting question. In one semester, Doug and Laura spent a combined 250 hours in a tutoring lab. If so, let's say Doug plus Laura equals 250. Okay. If Doug spent 40 hours more than the lab than Laura did, so Doug equals Laura plus 40. How many hours did Laura spend in the lab? So substitute L plus 40 into D. So that's 2L plus 40 is equal to 250. So that makes 2L is equal to 210. So L is 105. Pretty basic. So Laura spent 105 because that's what we want to look for. 35. Jan made a initial deposit to a saving account. Each week after she deposits a fixed amount into account. The equation above models $80 that has deposit after um the weekly deposits. According to the model, how many dollars was Jane's initial amount? The initial amount was 15 because that's what the initial amount was. Because that's how the equation, based on just how you interpret it, because the initial amount would be 15. Because the initial would be when t is equal to 0. So when t is 0, 18 times 0 is just 0 plus 15, so 15. The initial amount is 15. This is just a basic linear, it's basic interpretation. In a figure above, point 0 is the center of the circle, and line segments L, M, and MN are tangent to point at L and N respectively, and the point M, as shown. If the circumference of the circle is 96, what's the length of the minor arc LN? LN, okay. This just has to work with inscribed angles. You have something like this, right? You gotta find. Okay, let's just call it off right here. Let's call this entire arc angle X, and this is entire arc right here angle Y, and this is 60. So, and I inscribed angles says that X minus Y divided by 2 is equal to that angle, which is equal to 60. So X minus Y is equal to 120. But you know for a circle it's 360 degrees. So X plus Y, sorry, ran out of space there. X plus Y is equal to 360. That means X has to be equal to, if you add them together, that's 2X, the Y cancel out, and 360 plus 120 is 480. So 480 divided by 2, because there's 2X, would be 240. So X is 240, and Y is equal to 120, because you plug in 240 back in. Okay? Sorry, that looks bad. It looks a little bit better. Which makes sense, because 240 minus 120, 120 divided by 2 is 60, so that makes sense. And 240 plus 120 is 360, which makes sense. So X is 240 and Y is 120, right? So what's the length of L, a minor arc LN? So LN is 120 degrees. So the answer is 120. I mean, what's the length? They just said the angle. So the angle is 120 degrees. So 120 degrees out of 360 is 2/3. I mean, it's 1/3. So since the entire circumference, the entire thing is 96 degrees, so 1/3 of 96 is 32. So the answer is 32. Okay, 2 more questions to go. Question 37 and 38 return to the following. A botanist is cultivating a rare species of plant in a controlled environment and currently has 3,000 of these plants. The population of this species can be expected to grow each year. Next year can be estimated by the number of plants this year by the equation above. So this year plus 1.2 times this year times 1 minus this year divided by k. The constant k in this formula is the number of plants the environment is able to support. According to the formula, what would be the number of plants in 2 years if k is equal to 4,000. So just use your calculator. So this year, um, uh, currently has 3,000 of these plants. So 3,000 plus 0.2 times 3,000 times 1 minus this year, which is 3,000, divided by k. And k is the amount of, is 4,000, as shown right there, which is 3,150, which is only for the next year. So in 2 years, we had to do this one more again. So 3,150 plus 0.2 times that year, which is 3,150 again, times 1 minus 3,150 divided by 4, number of is 4,000. So it's 3,283. So 0.875. So round your answer to the nearest whole number. So it's, since it's 0.875, you gotta round up. So it's 3,284. So that's your answer. A botanist would like to increase the number of plants that an environment can support so that the population of the species will increase more rapidly. If the botanist's goal is the number of plants will increase from 3,000 this year to 3,600 next year, how many plants must be modified? Must the modified environment support? So you gotta think about it. You want 3,360 for next year, and for this year is 3,000 plus 0.2, which times 3,000 times this also multiplied by 1 minus this year, which is 3,000, divided by k. So 3,360 minus 3,000 is 360, divided by 0.2 is 1,800, divided by 3,000, you get 0.6. So 0.6 is equal to 1 minus 3,000 divided by k. So 1 minus 0.6 is 0.4. So 3,000 divided by k is equal to 0.4. And 3,000 divided by 0.4 is 7,500. So k is 7,500. And that's the final answer for 38. So pretty simple question. You just plug in all the variables you have and solve for the last variable. So you're, in this case, you're solving for k, and you plug in everything else. Based on this exam, which one do you want to check? You might want to check 37 and 38, just because there's these variables. There's a bunch of them that are used multiple times. So you want to see if you plug them in right. 36, you might check with geometry. 35, you don't really have to. It's pretty basic. 34 is pretty basic. 33 is pretty basic. 32 is pretty basic, and 31 is pretty basic. Just test you like basic elementary school ideas. 30 you want to check a bunch of geometry questions you want to check, like 28 and 30. 29 you don't really have to check unless you want to again, because you already know. 27 you really want to check because there's so much wording in here you might get it wrong. 26 you really don't have to. You just look at the graph. 25 you probably don't need to. All these are probably under a minute, except for like 27, which might take you like 3 or so. And like 30 and like 28, which might take you a long time. So 30, 28, and 27. So that's already like 3 questions. 22, 23. 22 is pretty simple. 23 you might get wrong, as I did in beginning, as I showed, because you're solving for R and not P. 24, pretty simple. 21 is pretty simple. 20 and 19 are pretty simple. Even though I showed you that I got like 20 wrong the first time, like you gotta read it right. So you just gotta read it. But you know, you just have time. So um, all these should take like under a minute, except for yeah, this probably won't take a minute or so. Probably not 2 minutes, maybe. Um, 16, 18, 17, and 15 are not really that hard. Mostly just with proportions and stuff. Um, 14 is not hard. 13 you might get this wrong if you don't know what it is. 12, but you could guess 13. 12 is not really that hard. 9, 11. You might get 11 wrong if you don't read all the information, but you really want to read it. So, you might. This is easy. 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 This is pretty easy too. This is easy. All these tops are pretty easy. So basically, all the easy ones are like 1 minute. So you might get 11 wrong. You might get 13, but that's iffy. Um, you might get 20 if you don't read it correctly. 23. Um, 27 you might if you rush it. 28 if you really don't know how to work with this thing and you might take a while. 30 because it looks like it's a lot of work. Like it has two shapes and a hexagon is already a lot of work. Um, mm, those are pretty simple. 36, not really that much, but if you don't know your rules, you might get it wrong. Um, and these are like pretty basic too. So there's like 7 or 8 questions you might miss from this part. So the calculator section is a lot harder. So this one you might get like a 730 or so, but like it's only this section. So based on the curve, you might get a 750 or higher, but that's still pretty difficult. So this is one of the more difficult exams, but still pretty basic. So I assume you should be able to get a 750 plus on this, but if you get 730, it makes more sense. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next math record video.